Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tasmin and I'm an author, a freelance writer, a storyteller and a tempted gardener. I make videos about my life on the Azores archipelago, about gardening and becoming more and more sustainable, growing into a new me that is more intentional and more sustainable. And as per usual, I would like to apologize for the car noises in the background that you will hear throughout the video, because I might be in the greenery, I might be in my garden right now, but the main road that goes all around the island is right over there, so I can't really escape that, so I would like to apologize. This is the second part of the videos where I share with you my story and how I ended up here, how I ended up on Pico Island and how I became the person that I am today. In the first part, I already shared with you how I ended up on Pico for the first time and why I left Germany. I will leave the link up above and down below in the description box. So today we start off right where we left off. It is March 2018 and I have just left my little nest in Germany. I've packed my bags and I arrive on Pico Island. I'm supposed to stay here for 7 months to do an internship at a travel agency, and I arrive on Pico after a very exhausting day, and I arrive in the late afternoon, early evening, and I get picked up by my boss for the 7 months, the woman that is running the travel agency, and she's super nice, but I am shocked. I am so in shock. The weather is not good, and the island, Pico Island, is so much rougher and has such hard edges than I know it from San Miguel Island. To explain this, you need to know that San Miguel is the biggest of the 9 islands of the Azores archipelago and the island with the most money, the most political influence and the most tourists. So of course San Miguel, or big parts of San Miguel at least, are very much made comfortable in the sense that you find a lot of nice houses everywhere, the streets are new and everything seems more civilized. Emphasis on this, you know, like, I hate this word, but in the lack of a better term, it seems more calm, it seems more like what I know from Germany. Pico, on the other hand, is not at all like this. Pico is rough. Pico is unapologetically Azores, and that, for example, means that a lot of the houses are pretty bad. Especially because I arrived in March, which is off-season and right after the winter season. The winters here are very, very wet, very stormy, and that means that, of course, a lot of the color of the houses like just crumble away. So when I arrive in March, everything just looks like it's been half abandoned. Also, Pico has a massive problem with emigration. People leave the island all the time. There are no big opportunities here, especially for young people. So a lot of the people leave, so a lot of the houses end up being abandoned or only inhabited by older people, and they of course at some point don't have the energy to like take care of the houses and everything around them as much as they would like. Anyway, back to my story. I arrive and I'm just shocked about the houses that looked so fucked up and the cars that are so fucked up. They're all like broken and everything. If you come to Pico nowadays, a few years later, that is not the case anymore as much. But when I arrived in 2018, most of the cars here were so broken that you really ask yourself how the hell they're even running. And yeah, it was like not at all what I imagined. And I arrive at the house that I am supposed to live in for the next 7 months. And on one hand, it is a very cool house. It is an old traditional stone house. It is only built out of volcanic lava stone stacked on top of each other. There is no cement, nothing that holds them together. And this is the traditional way how the houses were built here back in the day. So that is very cool. It looks amazing. It's a lot of space. I have a massive living room and I have everything that I need. And my landlord, that I would meet only in the following weeks, is amazing. She's a super nice woman, and she even left me like a little basket with some fruits and some eggs as like a little welcome present. So that's amazing. But I come from Germany at this point, and I haven't really stayed in anything that is traditional ever in my life. And so for me, this house, of course, is insanely uncomfortable because it lacks a lot of the luxuries that I am used from home. And also, I'm still in this state of absolute shock. And on that first night, I just go to bed and I fall asleep quickly because I'm just exhausted. And on the next morning, I get up and I unpack my bags, and suddenly I can't do anything anymore. My mind is just in a state of utter disbelief, of shock, of asking myself, what are you doing? Why are you here? Why did you think you could do this? The night had been pretty cold, and when I tried to take a warm shower or to cook myself a meal, make myself some tea, I realized I also don't have hot water. Here on the island, you don't have hot water access like you do, for example, in Germany, where it just comes out of the tap. You just open it and you have hot water. Here, you need to have a gas thing attached to your house that needs to be full. And apparently mine was either empty or not properly connected, but I had never in my life dealt with that. I had no idea how any of these things function. I just knew there was a boiler, so I would need it to wait a little bit, and I waited for a long time for the water to get hot, but it did not get hot. But I really needed to take a shower, so I had the quickest and coldest shower of my life. And that didn't really help my mental health at that point, because it just increased the level of discomfort and being tense. So the day moves on, and I start to feel worse and worse and worse. And I realize I cannot leave the house. My mind will not allow me to leave the house, even though I desperately need to, because I need to buy some groceries. I don't have any food in the house. So the hours pass by, and I try to distract myself, but eventually it's all for nothing, and I head deep down into the first panic attack of my life. Looking back on my life, I'm pretty sure I always had some sort of anxiety, but like very much undiagnosed and unrecognized from my part. And I had a lot of trauma build up at that point. I will not go into that because that's just too private, that doesn't belong on the internet. But I had a lot of trauma build up in my life. And this first panic attack, where I lay on the floor, freezing cold, sobbing, no food, all alone, not knowing what to do, opened the floodgates to all this trauma that I never healed from. As a physical response to this whole trauma popping up back into my life and being very present, and all this anxiety and the panic attacks and being lonely and just being completely overwhelmed, I am not able to eat anymore. For weeks, literally for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, I cannot eat. Everything I try to eat comes straight back out of my body, and one way or the other. So physically, I get weaker and weaker and weaker. And now looking back, I know I should have talked with someone, and I should probably have gone to a doctor, because it was very unhealthy, and it went on for almost 3 months. And I lost a lot of weight at the time. But at the same time, and I'm not glorifying this, because as I said, I should have seen a doctor because it was incredibly unhealthy, but it was also kind of a detox to a certain degree, in the sense that I was really releasing everything that was negative. Like, my body was like, everything needs to go. Everything needs to go. At a certain point in this whole process, I couldn't even drink water anymore. Like, I would drink water and I would run to the toilet. It was really, really bad, mentally and physically. So the first 3 months almost broke me. But I think the biggest test and the biggest challenge was yet to come. But before I get to the real big thing that almost broke me, or that literally broke me, I also need to acknowledge the good things. Those first 3 months were incredibly hard. I think they were some of the hardest times I ever had in my life, and I was incredibly lonely. I didn't make any friends. I didn't saw anyone. I didn't talk to anyone, and I was all alone in my corner, and I was sick physically and mentally, so I was doing very poorly. But at the same time, the island here cracked me open, and it was so necessary, because all of these things, physically and mentally, were things that I had been repressing and ignoring and trying to push out of my life without actually acknowledging them for such a long time. And now, after everything is over, of course, and everything is better, I am so incredibly thankful that this place and this whole situation, and in my personal spiritual opinion, the mountain, the volcano, the island, have forced me to face my biggest fears and my biggest problems and to lead me on a journey of healing. Also, already in those first months, but it was something that continued throughout all those 7 months that I stayed here for my internship, I experienced so many magical moments, like so many unexplainable tiny things, mostly coming from nature. And like, when I came here, I was not spiritual in the slightest. I was a complete atheist. I was not religious. I was not spiritual. I didn't believe in any of these things. I looked down on it, actually. But being here, I just could not ignore the signs because they were so in my face. I could not ignore that the universe, nature, the island, whatever you want to call it, that the life around me wanted me to see things and wanted me to realize things and helped me to heal. I always said the island had my back, and it truly did. Being so incredibly uncomfortable really made me finally grow up. I was 24 at the time, and growing up was kind of overdue, even though I'm a big advocate of taking your time and everybody grows in their own time. And being young and feeling young as long as possible. And I still feel young, but I had been running away from the responsibility of taking care of myself and taking care of my life, of taking action. And by moving here and following my heart, following my intuition, and facing the uncomfortable and not leaving, but instead staying, made me really grow up. And in the end, it also allowed me to heal a lot of what was broken inside. So over the course of those first couple of months, I slowly got better. And first I was able to drink water again, and then I found more and more foods that my body would accept. And I started to be a little bit healthier than I was before, and things just slowly got better. Very slowly, but they slowly got better. Then, however, July rolled around. By July, I had been living on Pico Island for over 3 months, and I was still very weak, but I was slowly getting better. But July, I was not allowed to stay home. I was made to be a tour guide. This is a whole other video, what I feel about being a tour guide. If you're interested, leave me some comments down below. I might make a whole video about my experience as a tour guide. But I had 2 groups, each 15 days of traveling with them throughout the entire archipelago, and I had 2 of them back to back, so I had no break. 30 days of work for, I made an estimate, I think like 18 hours a day, and it's a lot. It's a lot. Everyone that has ever worked in customer service, and especially in the tourism industry, knows that people can be difficult sometimes, especially when they're Germans. And especially when they're Germans with money. So the first group that I had was okay. I was a little bit like on the edge of my seat because it was the first group I ever had. And then the second group came. And the second group consisted of the worst people I have ever encountered in my life. I will not go into a lot of detail because I was under contract, so of course there are things that you're keeping to yourself. And also, those are still people. As much as I dislike them, those are still people. And also, I don't want them to sue my ass. Just imagine the worst curse word that you know for other people, and just imagine me calling them that all the time in my head. Because those people were just very bad people, in the sense that they were just incredibly rude. Their beliefs were so contrary from mine, and the way they behaved towards me was so far from polite that I don't know, even bullying doesn't do it, because they were just so incredibly mean. And I don't say this as someone who's like easily put into a corner. I don't say this as someone like, oh my God, they were mean to me. I know customers are mean. I worked in customer service before I came there, and I knew as a tour guide, I need to distance myself from my clients, and while at the same time being close enough to them that they feel like they have a personal connection with them and that they feel safe and happy and have a good time. But I know that my job is for them to have a great travel. I know that's my job, and it's not my job for them to become my friends. That's not what I'm doing, and I'm very much aware of that, and I was very much aware of that. And I was able to do that with every other group that I had after that as well, and also the group that I had before. But this group specifically attacked me on such a personal level that after a certain time, I just could not bear it anymore. At the same time, I also hurt myself because I felt I was incredibly tired of working so much without any breaks at all. And I got physically sick again. So I was not feeling good at all. And a lot of the conversations and a lot of the things that they attacked me with really much triggered the trauma that I was trying to heal. So it was a very, very rough 15 days. And I think my brain has locked out most of those memories out of my mind from those 2 weeks, because it was really hard to bear. As soon as I went into my hotel room, I closed the door and I started crying every single day because I just couldn't take it, and it was tough. But somehow I survived those 15 days, and I was so glad when I was finally able to say goodbye to those people. And in a very weird way, these horrible 15 days that were some of the worst days of my life became some of the biggest blessings on the other hand, because it made me, in a very weird, twisted way, incredibly confident in who I am, because they almost broke me, but they didn't. And they were so convinced that I was doing a horrible job, even though I knew I was doing a good job. And they could tell you everything they want, but I knew I was doing the best that I could, and I was trying so hard. And I couldn't have done it better. I couldn't have. And of course, I was just a beginner. Of course, there are things that could have been improved. But at the state that I was in back then, I did the best that I could. And I think that was for the first time that I realized there will always be people out there who will hate you and who will dislike you and who will try to fuck up your life and to bring you down. Out of no reason at all, because literally my job and my whole focus for those 2 weeks was to make these people happy. That was my entire intention, because that was my job. That was what I came there to do. And no matter what they did, I still tried to follow that goal. And it made me realize that you can try your hardest to make someone happy. You can bend yourself and try to adapt to them as much as possible. You can obey to them as much as possible. If someone wants to dislike you, they will. And they will find reasons even when there are zero reasons for that. And that made me become very confident, because I realized, okay, I just need to be good enough for myself, because there will always be people who hate me, and that's all right. Of course, it was not okay how they treated me. Like, I'm not saying that. It was absolutely not okay how they treated me. But it's okay in the sense that I know that I'm still worthy, even though when somebody says something bad to me into my face. And something else had changed. Something very big. But about that, I will talk to you in my next story time. If you like this one, please leave me a comment down below and let me know if you like this little series. And yeah. If you haven't watched the first episode yet, please check it out. And if you haven't watched any of my other videos and are interested in my current life, where I am now, please also check those out. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I see you in my next video. Goodbye.